Okay, hey, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whenever you're watching. Welcome to another episode of Coaching for Coaches. In these sessions, they're designed to be a demonstration for you to see how we coach in our Master Coach world. For those of you who've not done our accredited Master Coach training, this is just a bit of a snippet or a preview into the way that I coach. So if you're a coach and you've not got a coach at the moment, then you want to get one. But also use this maybe as a chance for you to have some coaching yourself. Speaking from experience, I've sat in and watched these types of demos before, and if you treat it like you're being coached, you might perhaps get some insights and breakthroughs that are helpful for you. So watch this through two kind of perspectives: one, to study the art of coaching, and the other through the lens of maybe your own individual breakthroughs. So joining us today, Mr. Mark Brown. Great to have you with us, Mark.
Thank you there, Mars. Thank you for your time today.
Great to have you with us. Great to have you with us. So, Mark, for the benefit of those people that are watching, just give us a short kind of intro overview to you, what you're up to, and then we'll just kind of dive in.
Yeah, sure. Great. Thank you. So, yeah, I started my business, which is Pure Confidence Coaching, and I set out to coach LGBTQ plus men around empowerment and confidence, and stepping outside of who they think they are and step into who they truly are. So finding that authenticity really around being their true selves, and this comes on the back of obviously from my own personal experience, and also just after years of being in the corporate world thinking I want to do more, and going through as everyone does, things in their life, is helping people to be their authentic self and be their true authentic self, not just be who turn up in the workplace. So it's mainly around professional LGBT plus community, around being themselves, not holding anything back, and that's whether you're out or you're not out of the closet, but just making sure you always show yourself fully 100%. Yeah, so that's my services.
Okay, amazing, awesome. Let me ask you, Mark. So here's a question. I like to lean on this question whenever I start a coaching session. Let's imagine that it were possible for us to fast forward in time to the 15th of February 2025, and whether it were by coincidence or design, you and I were having a conversation. And in that conversation, I'm asking you how you're doing, what you've been up to, how the coaching business is going, etc. And in your words, you say, absolutely amazing, exactly the way I would have wanted it to have been, incredible, insert your version of ideal result, right? And then I say, what's your secret? Tell us how that's possible. And obviously you got to start to go into the things that you've done and etc. But then you say, well, and I say, what's been a significant moment that's impacted? And you say, well, we had this coaching conversation back on the 15th of February 2024 on StreamYard. It took us about 20 minutes to figure out the tech, but we got there in the end. And in that conversation, we spoke about some things that were really, really, really meaningful and impactful. And really, it was an extraordinary conversation. It really helped shape the following year. So my question to you then, Mark, is if it were true that this conversation was so impactful that it was a really extraordinary conversation that really shaped your coaching in the next 12 months, what would be the headline thing that we would have had to have spoken about in this call today for that to be true for you a year from now?
I think it's, am I setting myself out on the right path? Is my niche the right niche to go down? Is, I always, hear that, you're your first coach, but just because I go, can step into my authentic self doesn't mean that's who I should be serving. I should be coaching and supporting. So it's making sure that, I'm serving, supporting, helping the right people with the right needs, basically, I suppose. So it's that, it's me asking you, Miles, is, where do you think I'm best focusing my energy, my skills, based on my experiences and what I've got to share and give and serve?
Great. So there's loads that's come up for me, especially from the first thing that you talked about in the introduction, and then the niche thing. Here's my view on niching. There's two trains of thought, but the trains of thought all lead into this one quote that I heard many years ago from Tony Robbins that has always for me been like an internal compass in everything that I do. You may want to write it down, and anybody else that may want to write it down as well. I must say it must be the quote that I say the most in any given week. He says, "Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure." Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. So what that means is everybody that is quote unquote successful, there is lots of people that are quote unquote successful but aren't happy. And so that happiness piece isn't really about happiness, it's about fulfillment. So when we then dial into niching, I think here's the old way of looking at niching. It's like pick a niche that there's already a market that there's a hunger and a desire for, and do that and you will be successful. Follow the right marketing. There really is a science to marketing. Follow the right marketing and you will be successful.
Yeah.
And that's, I believe, to an extent, I believe that is true. Follow the training plan that the personal trainer gives you and you will get the six pack. You will get complete the marathon. You will complete the marathon. The problem with that, from my experience, Mark, is that doesn't guarantee that there will be fulfillment at the end of that. And so the challenge is, a lot of coaches I see are wanting to figure out the success piece. So they're either doing one or two. They're either so heavily in fulfillment, but their eye is not on the fact that marketing is marketing for a reason, and there is a recipe and ingredients to follow to achieve the success. So they're so far down the fulfillment, they're completely blind to the fact that they might be going down a path that there is just no really desire or market for. And then there's the other coaches that can go down a path where they achieve this successful coaching business, but they're not fulfilled because they're burnt out, overworked, or effectively are coaching a kind of client that they really just don't want to work with. So what I loved about what you said at the beginning was about the community that you want to serve, helping people be their truest, authentic self, not holding back, showing themselves fully. Forgive me for not getting it all exactly verbatim.
Sure.
But what I loved about it is it felt congruent. It didn't feel like something that you were just making up on the fly. It felt like something that you were actually living and breathing. And actually, my gut intuition says that I believe that there is a place in today's day and age for people to carve out their own niches. The key is for them to be able to learn how to show their ideal market that they understand the conversation that's going on in their head enough to make them basically spend money with you instead of spending money elsewhere.
Yeah.
Because here's what I believe. I believe that nobody really wants coaching. What they want is a means to an end, and that end is everybody just wants to feel good, feel happier, have more certainty, have more success, have more significance, have more variety, have better connections, have more love. Everybody just wants to meet their human needs. So what we've got to do with your brand of coaching is show people, if you come and work with me, you'll get your human needs met easier, faster, and in a more sustainable way than if you go and spend that money on stuff that you don't really want, you don't really need, and actually isn't going to give you a long-term benefit.
Yeah.
So our challenge, and that's what every business in the world is trying to do, is show that their thing will meet somebody's needs better than somebody else's thing. And so what we've got to do is, go. Sorry.
So that's my query. Is that pain point? Is am I hitting the right pain point to serve? Because I've had that pain point myself. So it's find that resonance.
For sure. So here's some questions I want to ask you that are not niching related, but I think that they're really relevant to you having people come towards you rather than you feel like you've got to go and get them. Where would you say in your life right now that you are kind of out of integrity maybe not fully being your most authentic self, where maybe you perhaps are holding back, and where maybe you're perhaps are not showing yourself fully?
That's usually around my family. There's probably a dial down when I'm around my family. Um, really, I suppose, so it is in that area. With friends in the workplace, it's fully volume up, but around family, I do dial down.
Okay. And what impact is that having on you, like on a soul level?
I suppose it's that I want to phrase this correctly now, so bear with me, but it's the almost like the translation. So imagine watching film translated. You never get the full translation across on the screen as what's actually said in the language.
Great analogy.
Yeah, that's how I really feel.
So
I'm editing myself
using,
before I talk.
yeah, I love that. So using that analogy, which is a beautiful way you just described that, makes complete sense to me. Where did that first start for you, where you felt like you were being in subtitles with family? Where did that to your mind, where did that first start?
I believe it's probably when I was much younger. I've got three brothers, so I've got it's a survival of the loudest. And I'm not naturally an extrovert, and some of the family is, but it is that quieten down, don't stand out, but I do have a voice. So I think it's almost like editing myself way back then, so it wasn't too much. And being in the not being out as well, you always reduce some of yourself because you're probably trying to not show 5% of yourself, but you then take away 55% of yourself, through not being too much too sherry to whatever. So I think from that you just automatically also do. So then you reduced even more from who you are, and you dimmed yourself down so much.
Mm. And how is that impacting your relationships with those people that are family? How is that impacting?
It probably isn't as much now. Now I've got older. Now I have living as myself through things I've been through in my life where won't step too much into it, but I wasn't very well 5 years ago. And then you realise life's too short to keep not being you, and to be
Yes.
you for other people isn't to be their version of you isn't always right. You've got to fully be your version of you.
Mm. Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
where I stepped into it.
Okay. So going back to the niche thing, what would you say is most what would you say is most like critical for you to resolve right now, right, regarding your coaching?
It is that I want to make sure that I'm being authentic to the way I coach and who I serve and who I coach and support. And it is making sure, fair enough, family dynamics and family relationships and the whole familial um, way is one. The other one is the workplace, professional, and and being yourself in the workplace, whether that is you're out, you're not, you can still be your full authentic you. But it's obviously family or professional workplace. I don't want to be all for everyone. I want to make sure that I'm really giving my 100% to those that are paying, because that's what they're paying for. They're paying for me to make sure I give them everything they need, and I don't want to be shimmying between two or three different personas.
Mm. You
We
got
can be
me
all
there
things
with,
to all people, but we're not giving them what they deserve.
yeah. When you talk about shimmying between personas, that's a really interesting concept there when you think about masks and archetypes of personality. So in terms of your niching and your coaching at the moment, where would you say you're out of integrity? What is something that you may be doing that you feel like that doesn't feel right to you with the brand at the moment?
I think because I was initially focused around all areas of life, which is your passion, your purpose, upskilling your career, your job, forming committed relationships, and then also, you know, yourself and the ego. And it's like, actually, you know, you can do the passion, the purpose, and the egoic self, but then, you know, relationships and then professional career are two. That's where the fork in the road appears, because everyone's got those, you know, like masks we put on for family, like we discussed earlier, and then the mask you put on the workplace. And I think if you try and encourage people to take both masks off at once, they could jump back to their egoic self. So it's like, make sure you do them small steps. So I think, you know, it's knowing which path I should lead down, and then the other one can meet up if they want to when they get to the end of that.
Got it. Just remind me, Mark, have you been through our Master Coach program?
Not yet, no.
Okay, so that wasn't a shameless plug, I promise. But so one of the when I created Master Coach, one of the things that I was really conscious of was, from my experience as a coach, I was having a lot of clients where it was kind of all over the place. It was really mentally intensive for me, and also because there wasn't a structure, I was finding that clients were not getting like necessarily the best results. And then I had a conversation with a coaching mentor who basically started to talk to me about this thing called framework-based coaching, meaning the difference between freestyle coaching, which is kind of make it up as you go along, which is kind of what I'm doing here now, is if you do too many of those in a row, coaching one-to-one isn't scalable anyway. Obviously, there's a ceiling to it, and it's risky because if you get ill and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But more importantly, if you do lots of one-to-one coaching in a row, freestyle, it puts a lot of strain on your brain to think about the next thing, right? So anyway, cut a long story short, the mentor said to me, you know, what are 12 areas that your client, your ideal customer, needs to work on for them to get breakthrough, transformation, etc. So when I started my original business coaching gyms, I went, what are the 12 areas that gyms need to work on to be successful? And then when I started doing life coaching and accrediting people, well, before I did that, I decided to come up with a model where I said, right, what are 12 areas that everybody, if they worked on these 12 areas, would have more success and more fulfillment? And I went, okay, well, they need clarity. We've got to start with that, because if we're not clear about who we are and what we want, it's like being lost in the woods without a compass and without having a clue. Then I thought, okay, after that, we've got to work on energy, because if they don't have the right energy, they can have clarity, but if they don't have energy, it's just gonna be impossible to achieve what they want. Once they've got energy, and then it just kind of went on from there, and then I got them in a sequence and an order. So I think what may be really good for you, and obviously Master Coach kind of does it for you, but I think for you to think about what you really need to do is have a modularized process where you could say to a person, if you work with me, here's the journey. Like session 1, we do this, session 2, we do this, session 3, we do this. And the old school way of coaching, coaches, when I first started doing this model, purists would say, oh, you can't coach in that way because everybody's different. And then on one hand, I agree with that everybody needs that individual element. And actually, what I found is that structured coaching gives you chance to color outside the lines, but then you can always come back to the track of your session. So you can think and coach freestyle, but you've got a structure to lean on. And also, when I looked at the market, I went, well, hang on a minute. Arguably the best known coach in the world, Tony Robbins, is doing the same Unleash the Power Within that he's been doing for 30 years. And he's doing all right. And he's getting people every single year getting transformed and coming back and doing it again and again and again. So I was like, maybe actually that is the thing. Maybe actually the most successful in the world are recognizing that most people don't really know what they want. They need to be guided and led in a structured way to transformation. So I think for you, I would be thinking about, okay, if I were to coach my ideal client in 12 areas, what would those 12 areas be that if I coach them on those 12 sessions would guarantee that they would see progress, results, breakthrough?
Yeah.
And that's what
I do have in my 10-week program. It is that, you know, first of all, Yeah, and it is that. It's like, first of all, why you're here. What does success look like? Almost like we talked about this, right? So that's how it all starts. It's really pulling down, and that stemmed from a report that came out last year around 75% of people aren't authentic in the workplace.
Right.
That's LGBT community, that is, which is 45% of actual any individual. So from that, it was like, right, let's kill barriers. But then it's then, like you just said, there is that digression of, I want to focus on one thing first. Let's get that narrowed down, which is that, where do I take it? Because then I can bring around the next framework, which is, okay, if that's working, you're successful and you're seeing the results here, and you're still having the other issues you talked about, let's bring that back. So thinking coaching, if we've got a set framework, correct me if I'm wrong here, because obviously you're the expert here, but it's like, it'll come out in the questions, won't it? It'll come out during the sessions. So you bring it back every time. So it will come out there. So it doesn't have to mention it fully in what you're offering, but it's just making sure that promoting myself to attract the right people, so that I'm helping the right and not just getting everyone banging down my door.
Yeah. Here's what I've also learned is that, and you may already know this, but I think it's it was a really important distinction for me, is to know that coaching and marketing are two obviously different things, and niche has nothing to do with coaching. So what that means is,
Yeah.
and all a niche is, and this is for everybody's benefit that may be watching on the replay or whatever, all a niche is a marketing tactic or headline to grab attention of your ideal audience. Once people are in your world, you can coach them on whatever you like.
And it's like, I'm a qualified marketeer, but the difference is just because you know how to do it in one world doesn't mean it fits into the coaching world. And you do hear a lot of, like I mentioned, personas. That's a marketing term, niche marketing term, and it doesn't fit always the same way into personal servicing. Can I use that term in a way of what we're doing and helping and supporting people? So when we talk about niche, it's me making sure that I'm helping, supporting, guiding the right individuals, almost like you, Mars, in a way where you want to make sure you're supporting the right coaches in a way that not every coach is going to fit into your way that you believe they should be delivering, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's probably looking at a framework.
Yeah.
I think that's what got me thinking.
What I was going to say, what's most stood out for you? I recognize that sometimes, here's something I've learned about coaching is that, and I observed it in myself just then for a split second, is sometimes we can overcoach, or we can speak and we can step on the silence rather than recognizing that actually sometimes if we just hold the space for the person to process what's been said, that's where there could be a breakthrough. So rather than me keep coaching, I'm curious about what's come up for you so far that's been an insight or a breakthrough.
The breakthrough there was, I can be all things to all people. It's making sure that I answer the questions they need answering during the time we have together. I think that's the way it is. So it's making sure that I can, because I'm able to do the cultivating the meaningful relationships, professional development, and career openness, and being authentic in that way. It's just making sure that I've got the offer within my framework of, if you want cultivate meaningful relationships, this is the one for you. If you want to be your authentic self in the workplace, then this is the best one for you, which then allows that space and time for me to have those conversations with them dedicated to those elements of the framework, the workshop framework of my program. So I think that's what then sprung for me, is I can do both. I've just got to make sure that I showcase both and don't bundle them together into one program.
For sure. Yeah, no, definitely that's something as well. One of the things I often work with private clients on is how to create ascension and descension. So how to create like 3 levels of working with the client, kind of like economy, not economy, but you know what I mean? But in the context of airplanes, economy, business, and first class, because it can often create higher average order value, because if people see that there's you know, a pathway of ascension. Often a lot of people want to go straight for the middle or even the top. So good.
Yeah. So I think that's what my little moment of light bulb moment going off there. It is an actual light bulb above my head, not a bright idea going off. But
It's good. It's appropriate. Yeah, good.
it was that thought of actually, yeah, I can do. It's just making sure I package them correctly. So I'm actually, you know, being authentic in what I'm offering, so that they get the results.
Okay. Last question on the last, Mark, I think, and then I think I want to take you off the coaching hot seat. If you fast forwarded, if you fast forwarded 12 months and things in your coaching hadn't worked out the way that we've been and you've been articulating for them to, you know, do this, 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 and this, and we'll get this result. If you hadn't got the results that you aspired to this year, let's pretend you've got a magic crystal ball that can kind of show us the future. And in the crystal ball, we can see things that you didn't do that you should have done, or things that you did do that you shouldn't have done. What would be in your crystal ball? Like what would have been, you know, I should have done that, or I shouldn't have done that, or what would you say?
I think I should take the action when I think of doing it, rather than allowing myself to overthink and perfect it. Almost like, you know, JFDI it,
Okay.
because that's the only way, you know, I'm going to get. Because I think that's what's in the crystal ball is I'm sat here still pondering because I've not had a chance to talk to you.
Okay.
What should I do with my niches?
Okay. So because you and I are in a session like this, it's really easy to intellectualize that. That's gold. Take the action when I think it. So the next time that you're gonna overthink, because it might happen, what can you do to interrupt that pattern? Like, what do you know? What strategy, support, help do you need that can help to override that previous existing pattern of overthinking?
I think the support is going to be, I don't want to say to-do list, but it is that planned activity of what's today's, you know, what do I get to do today? Who do I get to support today? Who do I get to help and change their lives today? And how am I going to do that? And see it less about me and more about those that I'm helping and supporting.
Nice. Beautiful. Love it. And do you feel that if you were more consistent at doing that, that your coaching practice would grow and improve?
Definitely. I think start thinking less about, am I perfect for the world, in what I'm offering, and more think about, let's grow it together as we work through it. If it's helping them, then that's the best way.
Nice. A final insight would be, how about focusing on being more imperfect for the world? Because I believe that's what the world needs more of.
I think that's, I suppose, what I'm alluding to without calling myself imperfect is just put your foot out there and dive in. Don't test the water first, and let the water warm up as you're in it.
Nice. Love that. Mark, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to take you off the coaching hot seat. Great to have you with us today. All right, Mark.
Thank you very much. Take care.